Hey yo, it's your boy Ancient Albatross here again from the Cypher Unlimited and the usual Cypher Unlimited crew with us here today. We got Spigs and Dean, and yeah, we're gonna have a nice video.
And not only is it, the three of us that you're used to seeing our lovely mugs, but we have our other golden one, Steven. And he's going to talk to us and we're going to discuss some new and interesting things that are going to start going on Cypher Unlimited. Steven, introduce yourself to the world.
Well, hello world. I'm Steven. You probably see me around on Cypher Unlimited as one of the golden ones. Uh, Great honor there. For those who don't know, I live in Boston. Than all the other New Yorkers here. Uh, Been probably role playing for somewhere around 25 years, I believe. Started with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Second Edition. I wasn't special enough for First Edition. Uh, Moved on to like GURPS L5R. Paranoia. I'm not going to sit down and think of it all, but now Cypher is my new love, and so I love the community on the server and all these guys here.
Join the club, and don't feel bad about a second edition. Is where I got, I made my bones as well. Not everybody could have, been playing with the cavemen like Dean, but but we'll take a second edition. It's not a bad game to start with.
No, not a bad edition, but hey, we got to throw boulders. We got to throw boulders with numbers on it.
And you know what? We all know what THACO means.
I want to talk a little bit about how we met you. We met you at Gen Con of this year at the Monty Cook meet and greet. Is that correct?
Yeah. That was the first time I actually saw you guys in the back, and I was like, I think that's them. Pictures from hanging out and dancing with statues out in the
we were the crazy loud guys throwing buttons at people.
Tell me about it. You guys gave me like 100 of them. I couldn't give them out fast enough.
And I mean, I can say for the rest of everybody, it was sort of like kindred spirits. That first day we met you, you hung out with us. That was like the first or second day of Gen Con. You hung out with us every day after that because you were so cool. And, we truly appreciate you hanging out with us during Gen Con, playing games with us, later on becoming a mod on the server. But the best experience I had with you was GM Roulette.
GM Roulette.
That was a blast.
Yeah, so basically,
tell everybody on the server all about that every once in a while. At least.
Who wants to explain the concept of GM Roulette for the
Al was saying something.
No, I was just gonna say. I was gonna lead into the little introduction there about what GM Roulette actually is. So it's basically a full-on improv session where we get random characters. So every player or participant makes a list of characters, and we get one randomly assigned to us via rolling or whatever have you. And then one of the GMs is chosen to start via dice roll usually, and that GM starts a random story, again chosen off a list of some sort, and all the players work together telling a story 30 minutes at a time.
Yes. And we had some serious shenanigans the first time we ran it, and I guess as a group, our good friend Brendan's not here, but he was our fifth member at Gen Con when we ran Reptile on the server. But we plan to run it again in a future video so you guys can see the shenanigans that happens when you have 4 experienced GMs improving 30 minutes apiece.
But see, here's the great part about it, though, is it may sound intimidating, but it's like reps for GMs. Even if you are not, if you've just been a player the whole time, you want to try out being a GM, there is no way you can mess GM Roulette up because nobody knows what's going to happen. It is nothing but chaos in a way. I'm not sure if we want to go into the adventure that we had, but it went from like a hospital drama into an alien invasion, into invasion of the body snatchers,
to Mad Cow.
I don't even know where to go, but crafty and horror and then outer space after that.
Somehow mad cow disease got thrown in there.
Oh, it was definitely a very good time, and I'm very much looking forward to doing it again.
It was mad cow disease taken to a whole new level.
So let's talk about how we're going to approach this. So what do you think is the best way for us, Dean, going forward if we want to show GM Roulette to the public?
Well, what I think we're gonna, well, I think what, we've talked about it over and over, and I think the best approach is gonna be our next video that we do when we get ready to set it up. We're gonna basically show the files of the characters that we generate randomly, and there'll be a file, a link, so you can take a look at the characters so everybody knows what's going on. You'll actually see a listing of the rules, which are very simple. They fit on one page, and that's going to be the initial approach. We're going to do everything randomly. We're all going to make characters, one character from each genre. We've got 10 genres listed, and but nobody is going to be able to get one of their own characters. So I'll take a random character from, say, Anthony, and Al get one from me, and Brendan will get one from Al, and there's always going to be, Steven, I'm sorry, and there's always going to be one less character than player.
Yep.
So, so what happens is the one person who's the GM, when his 30 minutes is up, he gives the character that the next GM has had.
So which makes it very interesting now, because if you're the first GM and it's your turn, now you have to take the 30 minutes of character narrative that, say, Steven had, and you have to build on it and still make it your own at the same time. So let's say Steven had a boxer character, Cleon Two-Fists. And
Carl the Tooth Williams.
and he played Carl the Tooth Williams as this rough and tough boxer, and then it's my turn, and he's this rough and tough boxer who really has a heart of gold because he's really, so you actually building on to the character and changing it, and it grows organically.
It's all about the hunger, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hunger is one of my favorite characters ever in any game I've ever played. But yeah, it involves rotating not just the GM role, but the player role as well, because when the GM has to shift, everyone shifts character sheets, and yeah, you're not playing the same character for those continuous 30 minutes. You're not the GM. You're still seeing some other character and expanding again, like Anthony said, upon whatever story was preset by the player before who played it, and it makes for a lot of fun shenanigans.
Yeah.
And the other cool aspect is as a GM, getting your hands on the story, whatever, it's that thing that happens when you're at the table. You know how you're at the table playing with someone, and whatever they're doing inspires you because you're a GM yourself. You can't help it, when you're on the opposite side of the screen. Well, here's that perfect opportunity when that idea is fresh and completely raw to dive into it. So you don't really know where you're gonna go. It's pretty awesome. And the thing about GM Roulette too is we built it to be organic and expandable. So we're gonna continue to expand on it to give you more modular options. If you want to make it more intricate, if you want to expand your time, things like that. But the cool thing about GM Roulette is those times that you get together with your friends. There's no plans for a game, but everybody's in the mood to game. Well, guess what? You got 4 or 5 GMs in the room. You got a game.
Yeah.
It's zero prep time too.
Yes, zero prep time.
All you need to have is a pile of pre-generated characters, which anyone that plays games, you have a whole bunch anyway. Or you
some dice.
Generate them, right? It's the internet age. But
Right.
Like zero prep time, zero knowing what's going to happen. It's really just playing off of each other. It's improv at its best.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm gonna touch on something that Dean said because I know I'm sitting here with 4 GMs, and you're lying to yourself if you tell me you've never done this. You're sitting in the session, and you as a player, and you're playing in the game. The game is fun, but the GM does something, and you be like, man, that was a cool idea. But if I was the GM, I would have did it this way. And guess what? In this game, you get an opportunity. You just got to wait 30 minutes and then you can do it your way.
And that's what I was saying. That's the exact thing I'm saying because I know that's my biggest problem being a player. It's not that I don't like to play. I literally love to play, but that creative side, that GM side, it just always is screaming at me. You know, Steven said something earlier. We were having a discussion. I don't know if you caught it, Anthony, but I am running a game coming up, and it's called The Return of Lopan, where you guys are going to play mystery men characters in the realm of Big Trouble in Little China.
Awesome. Big Trouble in Little China is one of my favorite movies of all time. Yeah.
Oh yes, I'm taking it. I'm running with it. It's on and
let's talk about the order in which you're a GM. I want to get your guys' opinions on this. What do you think is, if there's 4 of us running, we each get 30 minutes. 1, what do you think is the most difficult session? And 2, what do you think the roles are opposed from the person starting the game to the person bridging it in the middle and to the person wrapping it up?
Well, honestly, I've had a lot of time to think about this since Gen Con. And I remember we were saying the person who had to wrap it up really had a difficult time. But then we were saying the person who had to start it off, they didn't know where they were going because you don't know what's going to happen. And I'll be honest with you, with the time to think about it, I think each one has its own equal challenges. Because, the person that starts it off, okay, you don't have anything, so you're like, oh my God, okay. And then you gotta bang, 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 and come out with something and, get this intro in 30 minutes. But then when you're the next person in line, there's bridging the story. Yours is kind of intricate too, because it's like, okay, what in the world am I gonna do with, a hospital bed and a guy with leprosy, and and then you come in and you're like, so you're the guys in the middle, and then that guy at the end is like, okay, these fools have, we got people drinking blood in the sewer, and we got talking cows, and we got a sociopath who should be in an institution who thinks he's a superhero, but he's a small town cop. All this going on. How do I wrap this up? Where do I go? So I think everybody has an equal kind of push me, pull me, but it's all so much fun. That's just my take.
How about you, Al, Steve?
No, it's basically what he said, just minus. Because I started last time. I'm the one who started in our GM Roulette game, and I'm not gonna lie, it was a little tough coming up with an idea that seemed feasible. So essentially, I don't know if we gotta discuss this as part of the rules or whatever for running GM Roulette, but I took like maybe 2 or 3 minutes to look at the character sheets that had gotten chosen, and kind of try to connect them in some way, and then roll from there. And I felt kind of, again, even with just the 2 to 3 minutes, it's not that much time, and I was able to pull something off, and it was enough of a lead on that it could be built upon by the next person in line. And yeah, I just think having those couple minutes before, like for the person going first at least, to get us like a little grasp of each character, and yeah, being able to start from there. But still, it's tough.
Yeah, actually, I was going to use that as an example. The way I remember Al starting us off, I thought was brilliant. Mm-hmm. Because he put 2 characters, it was Brendan and Anthony together. And it was like this hospital drama, but he didn't introduce all of us at the same time because it was before Dean came on, because Dean was busy playing, I think, Invisible Sun or something at the time.
Oh yeah.
No, I was running demos at the time. So I had to finish demos. Okay.
But so we're like constantly texting him like, hey, you got to come join this. But so it was just a couple of us first. And I remember that you introduced me later. And so this whole thing where he had this whole idea of this hospital thing, and then this spaceship comes crashing down, and Anthony's like, it was just this whole thing of you don't need to introduce all the characters don't have to start in a tavern. Yeah. It was like it was the hunger. It was my character I got to play for like 30 whole minutes. That I handed over to Al after because I was second. And so, but just you can introduce it like that, and just all of a sudden I'm sort of left with, oh, okay, some bad guys. We shot at them. They ran off because I was so fierce, and now now Albatross gets to play my character. But what happens there, and I'll say this is my challenge, was since I was second, it was, I'm the players are left after that first 30 minutes of what do I, that shifts, even in real games, right? Players sometimes get to a point where like, okay, what do we do? And that's what I had to solve. So I had I think it was both me and Anthony had like investigation scenarios where it's like I had to get people from point A, I don't know, to point A, point 5. And it was like, how do I do this and keep it interesting? I'm not going to go into all the details of the story, but it was like going on. There's a whole other town by the time mine came, and that's when Anthony took over. And so I think we had that middle part. And that middle part is, even in a real game, I find that can be difficult because like you have to, the players they got some kind of plot point, and then they got to keep them interested until they get to another plot point, which is, I think, when the Dean came in, right?
Right. I came in like you had about 10 minutes left when I got there. So I got to fool around for 10 minutes in your scenario. And
that's right. You were searching through characters. So yeah, and right. I think that part was, I think after me and Anthony just, because Anthony and I have talked about this a few times now, is that second to last person. And that was Dean's job. And that's what, in any story, that is the when you're 75% of the way through any movie, any book, that's when the action's really kicking in. And he did a great job of doing that. And to me, like, that is difficult, except for the ending part is you don't know what Dean or whoever's the second to last person is going to leave you with. So I'm kind of on a coin flip. I can come up with an intro, no problem. But like those last two people have to wrap it up in some form that makes it feel satisfying to everybody.
Yeah, I'm very opinionated on this. Me and Steven had conversations about this. Personally, ending the game and starting the game, I'm confident in my improv chops. Anybody that's played with me knows that I think rather quickly on my feet. So I don't worry about those. To me, the most difficult are the middle pieces. The person that's connecting, building these bridges to connect to the next person. So you actually have a harder time taking the information that was already given to you and still build onto the narrative to leave room for growth for the person behind you. So me personally, I think the most difficult spots in GM Roulette are the middle people. Because, you have to take the existing story, continue it, and still add bridges that might not go anywhere, but you have to put them there because you have to give the person behind you enough narrative plot points that they could grab onto something that, I don't know if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense, but I can honestly say I will take.
Oh, I would take any spot.
No.
Those are the most difficult.
Like I said, I'll take any spot. But honestly, where you guys put me, being second to last, I thought that was the best spot in the world because I had everything to build on. For me, it was like, oh, look, thread. Oh, look, thread. Oh, look, thread. And if you remember correctly, just from even what Steven told me about what had happened, when Al was running and what Steven did, the little pieces, what Brendan did, I was able to take everybody's stuff and go, ooh, look, click, ooh, click, pieces. And it worked. And it was like totally and utterly fun.
Because I remember when I ran, my only worry was I'm just going to throw out so many narrative plot points that whoever's behind me is going to find something that they find interesting that they can run with. And it happened to be the talking cow. The
cow was me. And talk about, I was going to say that was for things you can just latch onto, any little detail was, everyone was like, well, do we see anything in the town we got at? This like right at the end of my 30 minutes. And I'm like, yeah, it's a small town and a cow is walking down the street. Anthony and Dean abused that cow to their mother.
It wasn't a cow, it was Bessie.
It was Bessie, and Bessie ended up being alien when Brendan ended the fan.
Not just any kind of alien, but a higher, very evolved alien who decided to take the form of a cow.
Yeah. But seriously, it was a random cow I just came up with for like a roll of one as they were walking through a town, and it was abused for the rest of the game.
And that is the beauty of cipher and improv.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is tailor made for Cypher System.
Mhm.
One, the ease of character construction. Two, the ease of telling a story with very little prep time. You know, you assign a number. So, it's, this is like tailor made to be run in Cypher.
And I'm gonna say it right here, right now. I'm calling it. Uh, they've got RGP Sports. We got GM Roulette. Let's see what we're gonna give them something to run for. There we go. No.
I was gonna say I was gonna lead into the next question, but you could go in, Stephen.
Sure. Maybe this is your next question. I'm not sure, but we didn't touch on characters at all. Unless you wanted to touch that real quickly.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
We talked a lot about the plot points here, but the thing about the characters that we did was they came from multiple genres. We had a God to the Fall character. We had Dean playing a Supers character who was like Batman. And then we had me, well, my 30 minutes of The Hunger. The Hunger was an extraterrestrial. And then we had it was from your Darkest Dungeon, Al,
Yeah,
right?
it's like basically a gritty dungeon crawling.
Yeah.
type
I mean,
character.
you can explain how we got the characters. These were all characters that we had with us to run games at Gen Con.
Yeah,
So we
threw 'em in
we
piles.
literally just pulled characters from our gaming folders.
Yeah.
And I think we threw them on the ground and picked them up without looking at them.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's exactly what we did.
The cool thing was, like, it's not only that the story can be wacky, it's just that you're incorporating wacky characters. Guys who, it's in a hospital drama, the guy pushing the woman in the wheelchair should not be the incarnation of death.
Yeah.
She didn't realize that for most of the story. Or you go into a town and it's, Batman is the sheriff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of thing where you have to work. It's like you have to work these crazy characters into a plot that you don't know what it is yet.
And the other thing too, speaking of characters, it's always excellent, with Cypher System, you when people make characters, of course, they put a background story. So what I found to be effective was using that background story to weave it into the storyline. So while my character was supposed to be was based on a Batman type character, he was in this town because his story was his family were mobsters, and he stole a bunch of money from his mobster family and went on a hiatus around the world, or sabbatical around the world, learned all these martial arts, these detective skills, made him this cool costume, but was afraid to put it on, and moved to a small town to hide out. So, but I weave that from the background story.
Yeah. Actually, that was actually one of the funny things was with this improv was how much you can bring into it. Because, like background story, it was the Hunger's background that I came up with. That's the guy that everybody's
narrative.
But those backgrounds were great because it actually helped everyone else that was running. It gave us something to grab onto to build story off. When someone created a character and had an interesting background, it gave us something to cling on to.
Mm-hmm.
But to lead into my next question, is there anything you guys think we should have changed or done differently the first time we ran it? And what changes you think are for the better for the next time we run it live on Cypher Unlimited?
Well, this one's obvious. We learned it pretty quickly during plays. That how we selected our characters from basically our pre-generated adventures that we ran or whatever. Some of them had power shifts, some of them had no power shifts, and that became pretty evident pretty quickly that was a huge disparity. So I think us making characters with some criteria beforehand should help that out quite a bit. Where we say, hey, we'll have no power shifts or one power shift per character, but then we don't have someone with no power shifts, someone with like 4 power shifts because they're a Gods of the Fall character or whatever have you. But I feel
that
like
was pretty ridiculous.
That is
And we
something
also
that's
had
gonna get touched on
tier
pretty
3
easily.
characters with tier 1 characters.
Yes, that too. We decide on a strict tier and all that good stuff.
Well,
I think that'll make things good.
And just the fact that we wrote out some rules and fleshed out some things, I'm looking at that list that we have here, like what Al was talking about with the characters. So we're all making tier 1 characters. But then what will happen is, and you'll get to see this, right, in play, it is that we give each character or each player 16 points XP to use how they choose. So they can actually have 16 XP that they can affect die rolls with throughout the game. They can spend those 16 XP and tier up to tier 2. These little aspects, these little nuances, we're going to put in there. There's going to be a random piece in there to see if you get power shifts, and it'll be no power shifts, 1 power shift, 2 power shifts, on a character sheet, but that'll be a random thing. And if that happens, then that means everybody's going to either have none, 1, or 2, or do we want to go up to 3 power shifts?
Probably 2, because I mean, I don't foresee us, but then again, I know you guys, we could be in an intergalactic battle for all of humanity, but
yeah.
I think
I definitely remember. So we were talking about the 60 XP, which is great, but for the power shifts even, and we kind of did this during, I'm not going to describe it, how we did this during play to give people power shifts. There's creative storyline ways that, if you end up on an alien ship, there could be an alien technology or other things, Al, that gives you a power shift.
And these are some of the things that are modular, some of the modular ideas we were talking about. You probably won't see them in this first running, but these are when we start expanding the GM roulette concept. Because Anthony was saying, have a random chart of oddities that have to be incorporated into the game, whether it be something like Bessie the cow or, a green pendant, we've talked about Big Trouble in Little China recently, the girl with the green eyes, all of this type of stuff, we're going to have this chart eventually that, that might be a running gag or an oddity or, a theme plot point, whatever you want to call it, that may have to be added to the game in a random way. But these are...
Speaking of which, if anybody that's watching this video and want to throw us some oddities or something that we'll definitely, if you post it up, we'll definitely try to incorporate it in our first session. So go crazy, try to throw us for a loop. The crazier, the better, and I encourage it.
I encourage it as well.
Yeah,
I second it.
Tag us,
Yeah.
Right. And if you're on Cypher Unlimited, you can always send one of us a message if you want us to, if you really want to do it and, want to have something covert, and have us, where the rest of the group doesn't know it's coming, and you want to tag me or you want to tag Al or whatever, or Anthony or Steven, we'll take those things too, because we really fun, just enjoy this stuff, So if you got a secret twist or something that you want one of us to do, let us know, But there's all sorts of stuff that GM Roulette could incorporate. This could be like the ultimate way to run games within the Cypher system with zero prep time. The way what I'm thinking of it is like Fiasco style Cypher system. So
It's world building Fiasco in a 2-hour time frame. We basically trying to build a movie with 4 people telling the story at the same time in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, just to throw this out there too, is you don't have to stick strictly to what is in Cypher system. For instance, one thing I came up with when I was GMing it was the hunger eating the organs of his enemies kind of deal.
Oh, yeah.
These aliens. And I brought in a whole mechanic. I was the only guy there who had Monte Cook Games asset deck.
Yeah.
And so the rule I came up with, because I was just like, I don't want to just, give somebody a cipher or a static bonus or something. I was like, okay, tell you what, every time somebody does this, you draw a random asset.
Mm-hmm.
People are actually using them because you get this whole other currency within the game.
Right.
But you guys also made me think something along those lines was, I'm not sure if anyone plays other board games like Betrayal, The House of the Hill. But
Yeah.
another way to get an oddity would be, or a setting, is to draw a random tile and be like, you know what? You got to incorporate a crypt into the
Exactly. I mean,
right? Something like that.
I mean,
whatever-
Or
I mean-
Park Avenue if you draw a Monopoly card.
any of the you could basically run this with any of the Monte Cook card sets. You know,
right.
the NPC deck, the Cipher deck,
The weird deck.
the weird deck, the oddities deck. You could run them with any of them.
And that's the other thing of what we're saying, or what I want people to take away from this is that GM Roulette, first of all, will allow you to use all your assets that you have, all your paraphernalia, all your things. And I'm the only guy here, I think, who's played Invisible Sun. I know Steven owns it, and I'll be getting my black cube when this Kickstarter is over. But in playing that, there's even like little things that I loved about Invisible Sun. And because Invisible Sun is like the the aristocracy or the bougie cousin of Cypher.
The bougie cousin. That's wonderful. You're the bougie cousin.
That's right, but bougie cousin, to Cypher, you can take things from there and incorporate them too. So people, when you get ready to, do this, if you ever attempt to do it or whatever the case may be, remember, just like Cypher system, limitations be damned, because there are none.
Just introduce anything you feel like you liked at some point, some mechanic or something, like just throw it in there. Just like suddenly, now we have horror rules. Now there's an insanity thing going into play because something shocking is going on. Don't be afraid to just toss it in there because that's the beauty of Cypher.
Last question.
Well, let me say one thing before you put your last question, because I want to be able to answer that. The last thing I want to throw out there to people is I think many people I've encountered and spoken with about Cypher system and everything, they miss a specific nuance of Cypher. And that is players have rules to do things within the game, to make them larger than life or whatever the case may be. GMs aren't bound by those rules because all you're doing is building a story. You are the director, but the players are the investment. So that's just, my philosophical 2 cents.
All right, last question, and it's a two-parter. You ready? And we'll start with Steven first.
Oh boy.
Where do you want to go in the order of telling the stories? Not that it's going to be your order because we're going to draw it randomly. But if you had to choose, where would you want to go? And give me something right now off the top of your head that you want in the story. So anything that you could think of randomly, and we're going to assign it to somebody else randomly that they have to put it in their 30 minutes.
Well, that's putting me on the spot right there.
That's what I do. I put people on the spot. I'm the bougie cousin.
Who has a note so we can remember this? You got
where would I want to be?
This is going to be on record. This is a video. We got the video. We'll watch the video.
Oh, yeah. So I would say, you know what? I'd like to go first. I'd like to start off this thing, kick it off, see what I can do with the characters that we got. So an oddity or something crazy to incorporate in the story will be I'll say a flaming skull.
A flaming skull. Okay. Ow.
All right. So for me, I actually would like to go first. Also, I did enjoy starting the story last time. I also would settle for ending the story just to try to incorporate all the craziness that came beforehand into something cohesive that just seems fun. And for my crazy thing, or oddity, or whatever we want to call it, that I want to see in the story is a ghost of some sort.
Okay, we got a flaming skull and a ghost.
Got a theme here.
I'm writing this stuff down. So Anthony, go ahead. You go next, and then I'll go last.
Oh, I definitely want to go first for selfish reasons because I want to screw you guys with the most off the wall thing. And these guys are doing ghosts. I personally want hemorrhoids. I don't care if it's on an animal, on a person.
What?
I want hemorrhoids incorporated into the story somehow.
All right.
Because somebody make hemorrhoids happen for me.
That's a personal decision.
In all honesty, I could care less what position I go in. I have no specific preference because wherever you guys put me, it's on. That's just the way I feel about it.
And what do you want to incorporate into the story?
But as far as incorporating something into the story, sexy pixies.
Sexy. All right, so we have sexy pixies have to be incorporated. Hemorrhoids have to be incorporated. A ghost has to be incorporated, and a flaming skull. That's gonna be interesting.
So
Oh,
that
man.
I wrote those things down. Those are on our notes.
So wait, are each of us going to get a random one of those things, or just
Yeah, you're gonna get a random one of those things.
one of them? Okay.
But you can't get what you picked.
All right, makes sense.
Yeah, basically, everybody rolls.
I can see Steven's face. He's like, God, don't give me hemorrhoids.
Everyone gets that face when they say, "Don't give me hemorrhoids."
Actually, I want hemorrhoids. I hope I get it.
And once again, I don't care where it comes into play. It's just gonna happen. Because you know what? Once the hemorrhoids hit, you know what? Now it's open season. The next team gets to use it anyway. Oh man,
Pixies with hemorrhoids.
Oh man. But yeah, I think we set up GM Roulette pretty well here, and we're getting some good stuff going, and it should be a great session.
And real quick, people, just so everybody can get an understanding, I'm just gonna go real quick over GM Roulette for you. We're gonna randomly determine the genre. We're gonna pick one less character. We're gonna pick one less character randomly. They're going to be tier 1 characters, and each character is going to get 16 XP to use as they see fit. We roll a D20 to determine who goes first, and lowest number goes first. GM has 30 minutes. Each GM has 30 minutes. At the end of the 30 minutes, you roll that D20 to determine the next GM. Previous GM takes over the character from the person now being GM, and we repeat that until each GM has a turn. And the best way to describe it in one or two sentences is GM Roulette is an exercise in improvisational storytelling. And that adventure starts with one person's vision and is carried through to an ending with each GM. Yeah.
I think maybe we should give the starting GM 35 minutes though, because he has to read the character sheets and it eats up into his starting time.
Agreed.
So the game should get 35 minutes just so they can read the character sheets.
So we'll update that. Starting GM has 35 minutes.
Yeah, he has 5 minutes to read the sheets.
5-minute prep time or whatever.
I don't care if you guys want them to just go in raw dog.
No, I think that
5 minutes prep just to.
35 minutes, a 5-minute prep to get started, that's fair.
If you can't run a game of 5 minutes prep, what good are you?
You can't call yourself a GM. But we guys, man, this is great. And like we said, people, as you can see, the GM Roulette rules are kind of organic. They're ready to be modified and grow. Anybody out there who has any suggestions for us, please feel free to put them in the comments below. We'll definitely look them over, consider them, and even give you a shout out. So that's my two.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We want to give a special thanks to our buddy Steven, who will be participating in the GM Roulette. And if you're on the Cypher Unlimited Discord server, just hound any of the golden ones. Steven's usually the person there to answer you. And he's a great asset to our team.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you all for watching. Yep. And thank you for being on board, Steven. And again, from us at the CU, we will see you later.